This is massive. I mean, if Gurunath Meiyappan is team principal, as headlines today is breaking, as we've got to know, this is massive. If Gurunath Meiyappan is proved as team principal and he was compromising his own team by betting for or against the Chennai Super Kings, then the link is established. Then 11.3 has to come into effect. Ranjiv Biswal, the IPL chairman, is on record saying they will go by the panel's findings. And from what I understand, Shivani, on this account, the two reports agree that Gurunath Meiyappan was indeed team principal. Now, if that is the case,
all right, there seems to be a technical glitch in that link with Boria, but massive information coming exclusively to headlines today, and this could potentially land N. Srinivasan, the BCCI and the entire IPL in trouble. Headlines today has learnt exclusively that the Mudgal panel report, which has been submitted in the Supreme Court today, in fact nails Gurunath Meiyappan, son-in-law of N. Srinivasan. It says that Gurunath Meiyappan was indeed the Chennai Super Kings team principal, which means that he had access to the team, he was in the know of team strategy, and that he was in an official capacity with the team. Remember, N. Srinivasan last year had tried to dismiss Meiyappan's role and his closeness with the team, calling him a cricket enthusiast. But that, in fact, has been nailed by this report, is what our sources are telling us. Boria, extremely detrimental findings for Gurunath Meiyappan and N. Srinivasan, and this could land the entire Indian Premier League in trouble.
absolutely correct. And 2 days before the IPL auction, it's now been proved that Gurunath Meiyappan was indeed team principal. Gurunath Meiyappan was indeed betting on his own team. Gurunath Meiyappan was revealing important information. Gurunath Meiyappan was involved in betting. So what does this mean for Chennai Super Kings? If the team owner was betting, clause 11.3 is very clear. I mean, will the BCCI now sit in judgment? Will the Supreme Court allow the BCCI to sit in judgment? I also want to know what the report has on the issue of conflict of interest. Will the Supreme Court allow Mr. Srinivasan to sit in judgment against his own team as BCCI boss? What does it say about conflict of interest? What does it say about spot fixing and match fixing? But it's very much clear now that Gurunath Meiyappan being team principal betting against the Chennai Super Kings is damning. It is damning for the Indian Premier League. It is damning for Mr. Srinivasan. It is damning for the BCCI and brand IPL. Because if now the BCCI doesn't take action, when Ranjiv Biswal is on record saying they will go by the panel's findings, then the Indian Premier League will suffer a serious face loss. Coming 2 days before the IPL auction, it could not have been more bad news for the BCCI. Because this link that he is team principal and he is betting actually sort of goes completely against Mr. Srinivasan's claim that he was an enthusiast. Where does the BCCI now take this matter? What does Mr. Srinivasan have to say about Gurunath Meiyappan only as enthusiast or team principal? What will the IPL Governing Council say? What will Ranjiv Biswal as IPL chairman say? What will the other BCCI members say? You know, Shivani, 525 questions will now come up on Gurunath Meiyappan's involvement, on the BCCI's role, on Chennai Super Kings. Should Chennai Super Kings be banned? Question is, will they be suspended? Will they be taken out of the IPL? Because if they are not, then what is the BCCI doing? It is going against its own rules. So it's a massive moment for Indian cricket. And we still don't know what that envelope with sensitive information contains. Because if that is revealed, God knows what will come out.
Absolutely. Already there are murmurs that this could potentially match the match-fixing saga of late 2000. That is the kind of information that sealed envelope could contain, which is only for the eyes of the judges. But the big breaking news coming in exclusively on headlines today is that Gurunath Meiyappan's role as the CSK team principal and the fact that he was betting on and against his own team, that he passed information to Bindu Dara Singh, all of this we are learning has been proved in this report, and that is absolute trouble for N. Srinivasan. Vikrant Gupta, editor sports, is joining us from the Supreme Court itself. Vikrant, give us more details of what happened in that hearing.
Well, the matter has been postponed and the hearing is going to happen on March 7. But Shivani, as you just said, Gurunath, I think, would be the fall guy for Chennai Super Kings. The fact that Srinivasan, after the allegations first came, said that he was just an enthusiastic supporter of the CSK, that lie's been caught. And since it's been proved that he is an active administrator of the Chennai Super Kings, and the fact that his role in spot fixing betting and passing on information has been proved. It is a clear
Vikrant, I just wanted one clarification from you. Sorry to interrupt you there. Has his role in spot fixing been also proved? Can you give us some more details?
Yes, 3 charges. Spot fixing, betting and passing on the information. This is what the recommendations are saying, which means that according to the BCCI IPL rule 11.3, Chennai Super Kings are actually on very, very thin ice. Going by the fact that if your official is involved in such activities, your team's got to be debarred, which would mean that for Chennai Super Kings to play in this IPL would be a huge, huge miracle. I don't see that happening.
Right, Vikrant Gupta giving us those details. Vikrant, thanks a lot for joining us. Boria, spot fixing, that's what the report says. That was one of the questions in front of the report. Was there spot fixing involved in IPL 6? All 3 charges against Meiyappan, we believe, have been proved in the report. And if it indeed also says that Gurunath Meiyappan was involved in spot fixing, there is no way that the BCCI can defend the Chennai Super Kings, because the IPL franchisee agreement 11.3C comes into place. You have to terminate the contract, or in the very least suspend Chennai Super Kings, because the report also says he was indeed team principal.
Shivani, while it is proved that he was team principal and betting and passing on sensitive information, from what I understand, the report has not said spot fixing and match fixing. What the report is saying, and this please now understand, we have to be very clear when we put out before our viewers on Headlines Today exclusive information. It is not using the word spot fixing, match fixing, saying he's been implicated. What it has said, it has analyzed a particular match. It has analyzed the Rajasthan Royals and Chennai Super Kings match, and it has said there is enough scope for further investigation, and the report does not exonerate Chennai Super Kings or Rajasthan Royals from spot fixing or match fixing. I am totally in agreement with Vikrant that Chennai Super Kings is on extremely thin ice. Extremely. In fact, it will be a travesty of justice if Chennai Super Kings is not suspended. There is no 2 ways about it. 11.3 has to be invoked, because a team owner or a team principal betting against his own team, bringing the game of cricket into disrepute, means the team faces termination. Whether it's a 1-year ban, whether it's a multiple-year ban, what do you do with the franchise is a different matter altogether. But Chennai Super Kings is doomed if justice has to prevail. Having said that, whether or not spot fixing and match fixing has been proved, I still have my doubts, because my sources tell me that what the report contains is fascinating. It actually analyzes the Rajasthan Royals versus Chennai Super Kings game, and I can give you all the details if you want about what the report is talking about that game, because the report, sources tell me, says in one paragraph, which is A, it says these are the reasons why this match could have been fixed. And then it goes on to say some other witnesses have countered this, saying these are the reasons why it may not have been fixed. Having analyzed both sides of the story, the report does not exonerate Chennai Super Kings or Gurunath Meiyappan at all, or even the Rajasthan Royals. What it goes on to say is, in its recommendation, is that it recommends further investigation on this particular matter to reach a conclusion. So it's horrible for the BCCI. Unlike the earlier report which said no match fixing, no spot fixing, in this case the committee is asking for further investigation. It is saying it is betting. It is saying Meiyappan was team principal. It is saying Meiyappan was passing on sensitive information. Gurunath Meiyappan and Chennai Super Kings are on extremely fragile ground.
Absolutely. What you're saying, Boria, essentially is that what the panel says, this report says, that see, we believe there could be spot fixing and match fixing involved, but we don't know for sure, but there should be more investigations into the matter. But what it does say is that Gurunath Meiyappan was indeed team principal, he was passing information, and he was betting, and that is enough really to put Chennai Super Kings into trouble. But what happens from here on now? Is this the prerogative of the Supreme Court now to take the findings into confidence and say, okay, there should be more investigations into the spot fixing angle?
There are 2 things here. A very interesting question and a very important one is what you've asked. You know, from what I understand, again, this is conjecture because I have not read the report, but what I understand there is in the report, I have been saying this all morning, is there a mention of conflict of interest? What I understand from my sources in the Supreme Court, yes there is. So the report also mentions a possible case of conflict of interest on the part of the BCCI chief Narayan Swamy Srinivasan. Now that is massive. The Supreme Court will have to take that recommendation or observation into account. Look, the report is divided into two parts, findings and observations. Findings and recommendation. Now in that recommendation, when the report is saying, and the report is saying that you have to penalize the guilty and you have to put deterrence in place so that something like this doesn't happen in future. Now these are very strong words. This is what is is being mentioned in the report, and it goes on to say that there is a possible case of conflict of interest, which I'm sure the Supreme Court will take into account, because the Supreme Court will decide whether or not it's the BCCI which should be empowered to take action against Chennai, or whether it's the Supreme Court's prerogative to take action against CSK and Rajasthan Royals. Absolutely massive development. It is perhaps bigger than the match-fixing scandal of 2000-2001, because it's a proven case. Unlike the Madhavan report, unlike the CBI report of earlier, here a Supreme Court appointed committee is telling us on our face that Meiyappan is guilty, he is guilty of betting, he is guilty as team principal, he was compromising his own team. Whether or not the Supreme Court will take into its hands and suspend the Chennai Super Kings or terminate or ban, we don't know. But whatever it is, the BCCI is on extremely fragile ground, as is CSK, as is India Cements, as is Narayan Swamy Srinivasan.
That's absolutely correct. Chennai Super Kings are in trouble. There are no two ways about it, because the 11.3C clause of the IPL franchisee agreement says very clearly that if anyone's found to be betting on the IPL or in any activity that is detrimental to the reputation of this league, then the contract can be terminated. Remember, last year, Chennai Super Kings and its owner N. Srinivasan escaped all responsibility of the IPL spot fixing even after the arrest of Gurunath Meiyappan, saying that I had nothing to do with it, my team had nothing to do with it. Now this report says that Gurunath Meiyappan was indeed team principal, which puts him in an official capacity with the Chennai Super Kings, and that means action has to be taken on the Chennai Super Kings. The interesting question, as Boria was also mentioning here, is that will that mean that the BCCI is forced to take action on the Chennai Super Kings and the IPL overall, or will it be done in some manner by the Supreme Court itself? Because the mandate of this report, the key findings of which we are running on the screen, was the role of Meiyappan. They didn't have the mandate to go into what should be done. But what this report has done, as we are breaking exclusively our headlines today, is that it has suggested that there could be spot fixing involved in IPL 6, and that needs a thorough investigation. I could also add that there is, of course, criminal investigation still going on in this matter, both in Delhi and in Bombay. Boria, what should happen to N. Srinivasan? You mentioned that angle of conflict of interest. It's been hanging on his head for years now, and he has brazenly refused to acknowledge it. After this finding, can he any longer say, I had nothing to do with Gurunath Meiyappan and he had nothing to do with my team?
See, honestly, I don't know, but the fact is he's been saying that. But now the Supreme Court report stares him on his face. You know, what you've been putting out on headlines today from morning, Mr. Srinivasan's statement saying he's an enthusiast. Now, obviously that statement falls flat on its face, because the Supreme Court is saying, or rather the Supreme Court appointed committee is saying, no sir, he's not an enthusiast, he's the team principal of Chennai Super Kings, the team that you own, your franchise, your own franchise, which is owned by India Cements. Now this report is also saying that Gurunath Meiyappan was involved in betting. It is saying that he was leaking sensitive information. Now, as BCCI president, clearly will Mr. Srinivasan and the IPLGC invoke clause 11.3? As in, can the BCCI be trusted to do that? Will the BCCI be allowed to do that by the Supreme Court? Is there a clear case of conflict of interest here? Can Mr. Srinivasan, who is BCCI president, also team owner of Chennai Super Kings, also father-in-law of Gurunath Meiyappan, sit in judgment against a Supreme Court ruling? Can he do that? Is it too much for Mr. Srinivasan to handle? Will he now say, fair enough, I will once again recuse myself from this controversy? Will he say that? We don't know any of these answers, but what is correct and what is true, what Vikrant was saying is, Chennai Super Kings now stands on extremely fragile ground. Chennai Super Kings' reputation stands on extremely fragile ground. Gurunath Meiyappan has been implicated of betting, spot fixing perhaps not spot fixing yet, but definitely betting, and is proven as team principal. On this basis, 11.3 stares you on the face. Will the BCCI take into account it and act? Will the Supreme Court allow the BCCI to act? What will the petitioners say? None of these questions we have answers for, but what we've broken exclusively on headlines today has incredible ramifications for Indian cricket, brand IPL, IPL auctions and Chennai Super Kings going forward.
Absolutely. This is turning out to be massive. As bad as perhaps the match fixing scandal of 2000, because remember, there's also that sealed envelope which is only for the eyes of the judges, and nobody knows really what that information could be, but our sources are telling us that it could shake the world of Indian cricket. This in itself, the findings of the report which we are breaking exclusively on headlines today, itself is enough to put the entire IPL under the doubt. Boria, stay with us. We're going to come back on this exclusive story right after a very short break.